The story begins with the fact that the Nestians were a noble clan of snow leopard, which owned the magic of ice. The eldest daughter of the family, Elena Nestian, had unique abilities. The girl had great strength and talent. Everyone expected a woman to become a family head, but she fell in love with Asterian's Cardus, the heir to the genus of the Asterian, who have been enemies for millennia. Elena's confrontation with her family and a choice in favor of love led to a tragic end. The woman died during childbirth. The girl, born with hard work, turned out to be a hybrid, but was not able to show at least some abilities. Usually, abilities were manifested during the first year of life. Since the girl was already 7 years old, she was considered a feudal creature. One day, the Chander head of Sender Nestian closed his little granddaughter in the attic. The mockery of the Chander and the unity of the family made the survival of a young child almost impossible. However, Tiel has withstood extreme conditions despite her small body and somehow managed to stay alive. The grandfather had a stone heart because he was very ruthless with his native crown. One day, the baby was very hungry and stole a piece of bread, who wanted to throw it away. For such a trick, the man hit the child and was about to order it. The girl apologized and explained that she was very hungry and was forced to take a spoiled dry bread. Sender Nestian believed that her grandson had relaxed and forgot her place. Winter was winter and snow fell. The grandfather ruthlessly threw the baby to the yard, closing the door behind him. Tiel was only dressed in a thin dress and her legs were barefoot. She tried to reach the door and asked her lacrimally to open her. A woman named Cornelia Nestian, the heir to the Nestian family, heard some noise. The girl saw her aunt through the window and began to call her. Mrs. Cornelia was very indignant that her baby was calling her aunt. She considered the girl a very stroke, so she turned her back and left. From the cold, Tiel barely felt her legs. The woman turned to the Shender and wondered if he had to go from Rouen to fit clothing, as the baby was too excited by a long expectation. The man accused of everything he said, hybrid. Suddenly, the girl Rowan went into the room and greeted her grandfather. The man promised that in a few minutes they would go to the fitting. Rowan Nestian was the daughter of Cornelia and Tiel's cousin. The girl was well, groomed and neat. It was dressed in an elegant dress and a white cape. The child, seeing her grandfather, immediately ran to him and asked for her hands. The man kissed his grandson gently because he loved her very much. Meanwhile, little Tiel watched everything from the yard. The girl was desperately knocking on the window and asking Mrs. Cornelia to mercy on her. Tiel trembled from the cold. Her dress was already damp from wet snow. Aunt just looked at the girl and wondered if the snow leopard felt the cold. The woman added, "It is all because Tiel was a hybrid mixed with a black leopard." The lady considered the baby disgusting, because she was very similar to her mother. From hopelessness, the baby lay on cold plates. A few minutes later, the girl had already time to attack the snow. The whole child of the child presented her. They considered the girl a vain creature, because when she was born, she killed her mother. Cornelia constantly asked Tiel why she was born such a creature as her. Rowan usually claimed that no one would love a child like Tiel. The unfortunate girl constantly considered how her life would have if she had a mother. The child even came to think that there was no place for her. She heard laughter, saw warm embrace, family love, and nice little things she always dreamed of. Tiel wanted to feel it at least once. Falling on the cold slabs, the girl suddenly got over, but she was already in the attic. Tiel felt pain. The wound was fresh, so the baby thought it was not a dream. Tiel looked into a broken mirror and saw a scar on her forehead from the fact that Rouen was pushing her out of the ladder. He looked as if it had happened a day ago, but it was a month. Tiel seemed that she had returned to the past, but the girl could not understand how it could have happened. Suddenly Tiel's hands shone brightly, and when the glow disappeared, the little glowing of the grains fell to the ground. The girl was embarrassed, and decided that she was all embarrassed. It was not time to consider your hands. Tiel was convinced that if she really returned to the past, then we need to run from there as soon as possible. The child knew well that if she stayed, she would be in danger again. Tiel got bored because she didn't know where to go. The girl suggested that if she comes out and stays there, he will freeze to death. Tiel was very sad because she had no one to ask for help. Suddenly, the girl looked at her eyes on her eyes, reminiscent of the Black Leopard clan, who were in the golden-eyed Asterian. In the heart of little Tiel, a tiny hope that a dad's family may have accepted it. Such thoughts have warmed the soul of the child very much. Suddenly, the girl heard strange sounds. It was too noisy outside. She heard her aunt was preparing for a feast and gave orders to the maids. Tiel remembered familiar events and already knew how long the time was over. At that time, Rowan became a candidate for Coron Princey. All girls of about the same age as Coron Prince became candidates for Coron Princey. Therefore, the imperial palace sent a person to check Rowan, one of the candidates. The Nestian family was occupied by preparing for guests. The girl was quite happy, but considered it the perfect opportunity to escape unnoticed. The child was convinced that everyone would be tired of Rouen and did not mention her. Tiel has already invented that while the guests from the imperial palace would be in their estate, she will be able to escape and go to the Asterians. The girl looked down and saw 2 pieces of bread. Tiel believed she was lucky because she would be able to hide him in his sleeves and bring it with her. But the nasty rat had his plans for bread and began to sneak into the plate. The worried baby quickly grabbed the bread and leaned him to her. The girl became cold and she went to warm up under the blanket. Tiel was forced to endure herself because it was necessary to keep enough for the trip. Suddenly the child thought that her daddy may hate her, as her grandfather said. The man once told her grandson that if the head of the Black Leopard clan saw her, he would try to kill. Sender also said that the clan was most presented by the baby. Tiel was bored because her mother died because of her, and she was born a worthless hybrid. In addition to the Asterians, the girl had no longer to go. She decided that if they promised them to keep away from strangers, then they may accept it. The upset child was transformed into a snow leopard. As an animal, she climbed under a blanket and turned to a ball. Tiel did not encroach on anything. She only wanted to live calmly and unnoticed, as if she had not been. She could live on a piece of bread every 2 days. 2 days later, Tiel decided to put her plan in reality. When everyone was asleep, she quietly opened the door of the room. Make sure that there was no one around, the child went down to the exit slow steps. In the afternoon, relatives were occupied by the reception of guests from the imperial palace. The girl was convinced that they slept firmly. To begin with, Tiel wanted to go to her grandfather's office and take some valuable thing. The child was going to give this thing to Kucher and ask her to bring her to the Asterian clan. Lightly pulling the latch, Tiel was convinced that the door to the room was open. Since Rowan was constantly entering his grandfather's room, he rarely closed her to the key. There was no one in the room, and little Tiel opened a drawer that was the first to hit her eyes. Inside the drawer, Tiel saw the coins. She was very happy because she was sure that she would have enough for the fair. The girl also noticed a beautiful pendant. Opening it, she saw her mother's photo. The mother's face was the same as in a portrait, which he looked constantly. The girl pressed the pendant to her breasts and decided to take it with her. Tiel realized that she would not be able to go back, but she really wanted to remember her mother's face. The girl rejoiced that no one woke up and went to the exit. Suddenly, Tiel froze. Zaira, the maid of Rowan, thought that the girl was in her grandfather's office and asked her not to go there in such a late time. But, shoving a night lamp, the woman was surprised with her eyes. The room was not Rowan, but Tiel. The nanny became angry, and she began to shout how a little brazen dug into her grandfather's office. The things were bad, and the baby did not come up with anything better than to flee. A woman who tried to catch up with the baby. Some people began to wake up from the noise that heard on the estate. The nanny called for help and asked for someone to stop Tiel. The frightened baby ran something. She ran outside and went to the outline where guests were from the imperial palace. The woman was concerned because excessive noise could lead to big problems. Men who chased after the child decided to attach all the honor, the head of the family. Tiel ran out of the estate in only a light dress. From the excitement, the girl did not feel cold at all, although the snow lay outside. The child was very afraid that she was caught and decided to hide as soon as possible. The girl has never been in the PR structure, so she didn't know where to go. The door turned out to be closed, and she didn't know what to do. The baby was scared, but she knocked on the door. Tiel felt behind someone approaching her. Turning, she saw the boy, but asked who he was. The young man was dissatisfied with the arrival of the child at such a late time. Tiel started crying and asking the boy to help her. The young man was embarrassed because the family of Nestian was only one girl, at least he thought so. The boy noticed a shaken look and golden eyes, and decided that the girl was not Rowan Nestian. He asked the child not to cry, but to answer who she was. Tiel was silent. The young man wanted to know the details, so he assured the girl that if she did not tell everything, he would throw her away. The child, whose eyes were filled with tears, she said that she is a snow leopard, Tiel Nestian. The girl explained that she needed to escape. Hiccup began with cold and excitement. Suddenly, Titi heard the noise. Tiel froze everything inside. She realized that she was persecuted. The young man decided to help the girl and asked if she could transform. The child became a snow leopard instantly. The boy ordered Tiel to hide quickly under the bed. A Cedric, a subordinate to the emperor, tapped and came into the room. The young man asked the man who was created at such a late time. The subordinate reported that a small servant fled from the estate. The man said that the Nestian family took care of her, but she suddenly escaped. The servant saw the child ran into an annex. The young man said he had not seen anyone. The boy wondered, because the child had a characteristic leopard with blonde hair, and she was called a servant. The boy allowed to enter and see-rate everything except for his room. The man bowed and asked His Majesty to rest. The boy wanted to keep his personality secret, but in a strange situation. The young man thought, because his father ordered him to personally check the candidate for the bride. There was no one in the boy's room, so he looked under the bed, asked the snow leopard to climb. The young man wondered why the girl did not escape and why they called her a servant. Tiel was glad that the boy was still quite young, but had a high status. The girl thought that someone was very important to help her. The child was ready to accept help from anyone. Tiel said that she was under casting from her birth, because her grandfather believed that she only looked up with her family. The girl lowered her eyes and confessed that she was born without his ability, and yet she was quite ugly. The boy decided that the child tried to escape while the estate was busy with guests. The young man wondered what Tiel was going to do after escaping from the estate. The girl said she had several coins. With their help, the child wanted to go on a carriage to the Asterian family. The young man was surprised but did not understand why the snow leopard was gone there. The girl confessed that her father came from a family of black leopards. The boy stared into the eyes of Tiel, who were gold. The young man understood what the girl was trying to make, but with so much money she could not leave even the territory of the Nestians. The child was quite surprised because she was convinced that it would be enough. The girl was very sad and did not know what to do because she did not have more money. The young man promised the girl that he would personally take her to the family Asterian. Tiel was very happy and even said that she would surely pay off the boy for the service. His Majesty replied that there was no gratitude. Tiel felt happy and had a ray of hope for a normal life. The generous boy saved her life with her deed. The girl wondered the name of the young man and asked how to contact her. The boy was called Jandros, but he asked to call him simply Ian. The boy suggested that the child go to bed and even threatened that he would not take her with him if she could not wake up in the morning. The girl was very worried that someone would go into the room. Ian promised that he would not miss anyone and asked Tiel not to worry. The boy stretched his hand forward, and a white ball appeared next to him. Tiel was amazed because she had not seen anything like this before. The boy explained that it was his ability. He could create a gap of a space that opened only to him. Ian asked the girl to turn into a snow leopard and wanted to hide her there. Tiel was frightened, but the boy convinced her that everything would be fine. The young man said he could open and close the space at any time. The boy also added that while he is alive, Tiel will be safe. There was no other choice in the child. It was better than being captured by people from the estate. The girl turned into a snow leopard, and the boy moved her into a radiant ball. Ian promised to pull Tiel when it was safe for her. Inside was very strange. The baby was inside the fault of the space. There was a full mess in space, but as soon as the girl touched the subject, he disappeared. Tiel promised to be careful. She did not want to collapse even more through her. Tiel saw a shiny pink pillow. She looked new. The girl became wondering if she could touch her. The snow leopard touched the pillow and it did not disappear and turned out to be very soft. The snow leopard was comfortable on the pillow and dreamed of her dad to be as affectionate. Meanwhile, the servant of the imperial palace talked to a chancer. The head of the family asked the man whether he was comfortable in Nestian and whether he had a good impression. Cedric said that thanks to the hospitality of the man he was able to relax and the food was wonderful. Sender felt concerned because Cedric did not say a word about Rowan. He had to at least politely call her. Sender believed that everything went wrong as it should be because of the vicious grandson of Tiel. He could not understand why she decided to show her trick at that moment earlier. She behaved as if a mouse. Until the man has not left, Chander offered him to meet Rowan again. But Cedric got up and informed that the road and so long and decided to go. Suddenly Rowan came to the room. The girl politely greeted her grandfather and wondered if the guests were already going. Grandpa asked his granddaughter to wait. The girl was looking forward to her grandfather news. Cedric turned to Lady Rowan. The husband was glad to meet the girl and wished her the blessing of the crate. Sender clearly saw a clear sign of refusal. He suggested that the guests did not intend to support his grandchildren. Rowan asked Cedric when he came to them again and when they would see. The girl joyfully began to shout that she also wanted to visit the capital. Jandros looked closely at the girl, but the child did not understand anything and asked to take her with him. The Chandar was not joke. He believed that a hybrid was guilty that spoiled such an important day. Until that day, the family were preparing for a whole month. He did not intend to leave everything just so he was ready to tear the unconcerned baby. Meanwhile, Jandros with his subordinates sat in a carriage and went to the capital. The boy was happy to finally find himself in a carriage and considered Sender and his grandson too talkative. Cedric noted that despite the fact that they were from the Nesan family, they did not cost them to say that it was. The young man did not like children's marriages. He needed to find a couple as soon as possible and seal. Jandros' ability was so large and unstable that it was too powerful for his body. In order to prevent it on one day, it was necessary to seal the ability and share it with a couple. And the families who very much wanted to gain power offered their daughters to the crown princesses. Jandros is tired. Cedric noted that the head of the Nestian family seemed to be concerned about something. The man thought that it could have been related to the events that happened. The boy completely forgot about Tiel. He extended his hand forward and formed a radiant ball. From there he got a snow leopard. The subordinate of the emperor was shocked. The young man began to iron a snow leopard and asked the animal or was not scared. Cedric even seemed to be a dream. Jandros ordered Asterian to go to the family. Cedric did not understand why they were going there. The boy told that he needed to take the baby there. The snow leopard turned into a person. The girl politely greeted her husband and introduced herself. The child said she was heading for the Asterians to see her father. Cedric was completely confused. He could not understand anything. Jandros asked her husband to look at the girl's eyes. Cedric saw a snow leopard in the child. She had golden eyes of black leopards. The man realized who Tiel was, mentioning Elena Nestian and Asterian Cartus. Despite the opposition of relatives, lovers built a happy family, and the fruit of their love became the sons of the twins. However, Elena disappeared as a pregnant third child. Shortly thereafter, the news of her death came from Nestian. Asterian was forced to bury her without having a body, and not knowing the fate of their third child. Cedric was shocked because the one who was considered dead to be alive. Tiel was the same child. The young man ordered to go faster. On the way, the boy planned to make a halt. 3 days later, the carriage arrived at the Estuans. The Bogretsky named Pardon was glad to welcome His Majesty Koron Prince Jandros. The young man immediately told the man that he wanted to see the head of the family Asterian. As it turned out, the head of the family was on the departure, but the boy wanted to see him immediately. Cedric opened the carriage door and led the young lady's hand. Tiel was well dressed and leisurely left the carriage. The Bogretsky could not believe his eyes. The young gentleman reported that he had found the younger daughter of the Asterian family. The girl looked around. Soon guests were invited inside. The girl was amazed by the beauty of the estate. He was huge and elegant. Tiel even seemed that he was twice as big as the Nestian estate. The girl was a counsel, but at the same time she was scared. The child was wondering if she could look at her father at all. Cedric was convinced that the child would be warm in Asterian. Although the boy said it was necessary, but Tiel believed that the princess dress, which was on it, was too elegant. The girl was most afraid that her father would hate her. Tiel still felt happy because she was brought in a beautiful carriage, gave beautiful clothes, and Cedric with His Majesty was so good to her. For the first time in her life, the girl felt so well. The baby was wondering if she would ever meet a young man again. Cedric and the children went to the hall and sat on a sofa. The servant hurried to serve delicious food. On the table, a woman laid out a lot of all things. The baby has eyes. She has never seen such delicacy in her life. The young man said that the girl on the way gave up everything and ate only the bread that she took with her. Jandros suggested that the child eat everything she wanted, but the girl was afraid to touch something, believing that it would be rough. The boy did not wait, and a spoon with a Tiel tasted in his mouth. The baby was delicious. She slowly enjoyed the dessert. Never before Tiel had to eat something like that. Usually the baby chewed dry bread. Suddenly, the hall, along with the accompaniment, entered the cartoon, Father Tiel. The baby seemed to be pumped into the mouth of water. She looked fascinated at her dad. Tiel had no idea how to behave. The girl remembered the words of Grandpa, who constantly interpreted that her father is a highly dimensional and terrible man. He also reproached Tiel that because of heredity, she was the same. My grandfather also told that his father would want to kill her. The cartoon approached the baby. Tiel even seemed to be angry. The girl had no idea what to do. She even thought of praying her father about pardon. Since John and Cedric helped the girl, she decided that she could not just surrender, but should at least do something. Tiel lifted her head and proudly said that her mother was called Elena Nestian. The girl opened her palms and lay a pendant there, the same mom's pendant. Opening the preciousness, the man also saw his lover there. The baby tilted her head and begged her to stay. The girl burst into tears. She promised that she would eat a little, and she was ready to sleep even in the warehouse or in the shed. Tiel also added that it could live as if it were not. Salt tears flowed along the baby's cheek. The picture was shocked by the child's words. The girl was ready to live anywhere, just stay in the estate. The heart of the man squeezed. He realized with horror that the child had to endure. He couldn't even think what Cheddar did with a young child. The man began to reach out to the girl, and she trembled. The cartoon felt very embarrassed. The father asked his daughter to go out for a few minutes, explaining that he needed to discuss something with the guests. The man also asked the servant to take the girl to the guest room and give her something. When Tiel came to the guest room, she was very upset. The father did not say that she could stay. She did not receive permission. The girl had no idea what to do. There were only a few coins in the pocket, but even with them she could not afford a carriage. The child did not know if she would survive at all. The girl looked at her dress and decided she could sell it. The maid entered the guest room that was surprised because the baby was crying. The servants were worried and asked what was the matter. The woman suggested eating something delicious while the adults were talking. Tiel realized that if she was expelled, it is unknown whether she would be able to eat hot dishes at all. Being desperate, the girl decided to eat everything they would give to quench the famine that day. The young man told the cartoon that the baby fled because she lived in horrible conditions and was very frightened. The girl wanted to go to Asterian to find her father, and Jandros decided to help her. Cedric noted that the child did not blame his father of looking for her. The man was strange to see the baby so frightened and fastened. The gentleman said that Tiel's carriage was constantly looked around. The girl also gave up cooked food. The young man said he saw several wounds on her body. In Nestian, Tiel was called Crazy Servant. The cartoon had an assumption that could happen to that child. Snow Leopard Netian and Black Leopard Asterian followed the rule that the head of the family is a person with the strongest abilities. However, after 6 generations, after the transition of leadership to Asterian, the power of Nestian decreased. In connection with this, Nestian only wore the title of the Duchess. In this situation, Elena, born in the Nesan family, was the only hope of the family. Her abilities were exceeded even Asterian's. But the woman gave up the title of family head and preferred to become a cartoon wife. Subsequently, Cornelia was a candidate for the post of head, but she did not have sufficient qualities for that role. This meant that leadership went to the Asterians again. The Cartus realized that for those reasons, the child Elena was hidden and brought up in the hope that she inherited her mother's abilities. It turned out that the girl was planned to use in the political struggle of adults. Suddenly, the maid immediately rushed to Mr. Cartus and said that Tiel had become bad. The frightened man ran into the guest room. The girl really felt bad and lay still. The gentleman ordered the baby to dress in comfortable clothes and give rest. He also asked to call a doctor immediately. When Tiel was in bed, the cartoon wondered what happened. It turned out that the baby ate very quickly and then began to swell. The maid seemed that the girl's stomach was not ready for a sudden meal. The woman said that even in the guest room, the baby all the time seemed frightened and worried. The maids were even scared to imagine what the baby had to go through. Dr. Cade, examining the baby, explained that she was very weak and far behind her peers. The doctor also said that young beasts often suddenly fall asleep with insufficient full rest. Cade suggested that the baby should soon become better. The picture was upset because he still did not tell the girl that she could stay in Asterian. The man caught himself that he did not tell the child in time that he was now and her home. He was ready to do anything for Tiel, and she was no longer about to worry about. Cedric suggested that the cartoon take paternity to make sure that the girl is his daughter. Since the man needed a document confirming that Tiel is his daughter, he wanted to take a test. The Cartus had to register a girl in Asterian's family archives. The gentleman took the scissors and cut off a piece of baby's hair and asked them to take them to the temple and ask for a paternity test. The cartoon once, in advance, gave his hair to the temple, hoping that he would ever find his baby. He was happy that he had not lost hope. The man ordered everyone to get out so that Tiel would rest well. Cedric and the boy were going to return the imperial palace because they were so lagging behind the graph. The young man wanted to say goodbye to the girl, but unfortunately she slept. Suddenly Alphas Evalt Asterian, Duke of Asteriana, came to ask where the baby is. The leader of the Black Leopards clan and the storehead of Asterian was the true pillar of the empire. Podden asked the man whether he had not been appointed a dinner with His Majesty Emperor. For Alphas, it was a lot of importance, as the grandson he considered home returned home. The man repeated his question firmly and loudly, and immediately asked the Cartus whether he was sure that he was Elena's daughter. The son told his father that they had already started a paternity test, but the man was also fully convinced that Tiel was his daughter. The girl was a snow leopard, hidden by the Redians, with golden eyes of a black leopard. The Alpheus immediately wanted to see the baby. The son explained to his father that the girl was sleeping in Olivier's room. The Cartus asked Dad only to look at the baby quietly and go out immediately. The Alpheus was fascinated by his granddaughter. He didn't even know that she was born. The man was happy that the girl was found. When the Alpheus left the room, he asked the son of what happened and why the Nestians hid from them the birth of a baby. The cartoon came to mind that they did not want to give the girl because she was a child of Elena. The Cartus told his father that the child had a difficult life. In fact, Tiel's life was terrible. She was considered a posture of the Nidians and was caught for not showing any skills. Relatives considered the girl pathetic because she had killed her mother by her birth. The child did not feel a drop of love during her life. Suddenly, Tiel woke up. She was very scared because she saw an unfamiliar ceiling. When the girl recovered, she remembered that she was in Asterian. Tiel was stunned because even after her mistake, she was allowed to lie on a beautiful bed. Tiel was too worried that she could be expelled. In the corridor, the child heard someone's voices. When the girl listened, she clearly heard that she wanted to kill her. Tiel was very scared. She realized that her grandfather was right. Since the servants were very good, the girl decided that they just didn't know who she was. The child was convinced that the people of that family hated her. The girl decided to escape to stay alive. At night, Tiel turned into a snow leopard and decided to go unnoticed. The child did not want to die again. Suddenly, the Cartus realized that her daughter was missing. It happened during the change of guard, and he had a short time lost a girl in view. All soldiers were sent to search. He asked the subordinates to be careful not to frighten Tiel. The man launched fire from his hand and ordered Salamandri to find a child with white hair and golden eyes, that is, a snow leopard. The Cartus could not understand where his daughter went. The father has not yet managed to do anything for his child. At that time, he wanted them to talk about. Salamandra reported that the baby was in the basement and wept bitterly. The Cartus descended into the basement and found a little loss. The girl begged not to kill her and was ready to return to Nedian. The cartoon was pinched in the chest. The baby was so frightened that it was difficult for him to watch it. Tiel lowered her eyes and said that she had no abilities. The father looked at the girl and explained that she did not need any abilities because he was enough that she was alive. The man reached out and wanted to hug his daughter. A terribly frightened child took up her head and begged to come up with her and promised to listen to everyone and in everything. The Cartus tried to explain to the child that no one was about to offend her at all, but vice versa. Suddenly, the dark basement will shine with golden light. Near the girl, the fish were circling, and then she fell down on the floor. When the girl opened her eyes, she saw a smiling father near her. Tiel could not understand why his father was standing next to her. The child was convinced that he hated her. For some reason, the girl remembered that she had heard warm words. She could not understand whether it was a dream. The Cartus apologized to his daughter for awakening, but he wanted to finish as soon as possible so that the baby would rest well. My father presented to her daughter Cade, who was a personal doctor of the Asterians. Cade bowed and politely greeted the little lady. The girl was embarrassed because she didn't know why her father called a doctor. The child knew that the personal doctor treated only those who carried the family. When Tiel wounded her forehead, she was not even offered to clean the wound. The girl considered the situation very strange because she did not bear the names of the Asterians, and she should not be treated. The father was sadly exhaled and looked at his daughter. Then he asked what color her eyes. The baby replied that she had golden eyes. The father smiled and explained that it was a direct proof that she was his daughter and family member of the Asterian family. Cardus, with a smile, added that there was nothing impossible with such eyes for the girl. The baby had a drop of hope, and she asked if she could still stay in the estate. The man proudly announced that from that day, Tiel should not eat little, and should not live as if it were not. The man also added that the child would not have to sleep in a warehouse or in a shed, and assured that she would be able to live quietly with him. The girl started crying. These were tears of joy. She couldn't imagine that she would be so lucky. Because Tiel was still tired, his father kayed his father to finish the check faster. When everyone left, the girl thought, she heard exactly how someone in the hallway said she wanted to kill her. It was like a grandfather's voice. Tiel was scary, but Dad allowed to stay and promised that everything would be fine. Soon the servant brought a delicious dessert for the girl. It was a special pudding from the boss. The woman happily told that everyone went crazy until they decided that it would be a delicious and useful girl to cook. The maid was convinced that sweet would help the girl feel better. She scored on a spoonful of goodies and carefully lifted him to the girl's mouth. Tiel was amazed. She had not tasted anything like this before. The child still could not believe that she stayed in such a beautiful estate that is filled with such good and cheerful people. The maid told that the girl's estate awaited a happy life. Tiel very much wanted a good woman to stay with her. The maid was called Ria. She was very glad that they had a great understanding with a little lady. The woman explained that until a personal servant is assigned, she would remain nearby. Ria told the secret that applied for the position of a girl's servant. She smiled and blinked her eye. The woman asked not to worry and suggested that he may always be near her. The baby felt very happy. Ria reported Tiel that her room would soon be ready and asked to suffer a little. The woman added that the girl's room is very spacious and beautiful. Tiel could not believe that she was finally so good to handle. The girl did not hear any good word in her entire life, and the last days were simply incredible. The Alpheus reproached his son that he wanted to meet his granddaughter. The Cartus wanted to tell my father somewhat important. The man had no idea what it was about. The man said that her daughter showed her abilities. However, men have never heard of such a late awakening of abilities. The man said that the girl's possibility is not an affordable ability of a snow leopard or a fire of a black leopard, which is the ability of light. The Alpheus could not believe in what he heard. He asked his son whether it was true, and whether he saw it with his own eyes. The Cartus confessed that he clearly considered everything. The Alpheus grabbed his forehead with surprise. The legend of the ruler of the power of light in the empire has long been passed on from generation to generation. The legend was told that a child, blessed by the Tseet, god of light, would bring the morning to the earth where the sun never rises, and would run through eternal darkness, maintaining the balance between light and darkness. The legend was very ancient, and no one believed that the power of light really exists. The legend was just a legend. The Alpheus was amazed that his granddaughter had awakened the power of light. The Alpheus was afraid that someone would know about it. In this case, the imperial family and the temple will try to take possession of the child. The embodiment of that legend had the ability to stun the whole world. The Cartus tried to reassure his father and did not think that the temple and the imperial family would try to pick up the girl. They will not need an enemy in the face of Asterians. But Alpheus was not only worried about it. In their leopards, there was a secret legend of the Child of Light. The legend was known only to the heads of Nestian and Asterian families and their heirs. The legend describes that with the great light of Asteriana and Nestians will find true power again. The man thought that Tiel may really be able to remove the curse of the Asterian. The picture asked his father not to fantasize, believing that legend was only a legend. The man claimed that Tiel was only his little daughter, which he only found. The week has passed. My father and daughter were sitting at the table. The girl sat on the very edge of the big sofa, and the man asked her to sit in the middle. My father lifted his daughter in his arms and put her in the most convenient place. The girl laughed. She still couldn't believe that she was in such a beautiful and joyful reality. The man squeezed his heart from how terrible the life of his own daughter was. Just one little gesture, he made the girl smile. Tiel stole so many happy moments, hiding everything from his father. The cartoon wanted to talk to his daughter. He said that on the day when the girl appeared, she used the power of light in the basement. The child confessed that she was badly remembered by those events. My father smiled to the child and said that her strength was. The Cartus noted that the force of Tiel is quite unusual, but it brought the morning to dark muds. It was a legendary force that has banished the darkness of the world. The father also said that his daughter was the most precious creature in the empire. The baby could not believe heard. A few days ago she was just a non-soaked wand. Tiel could not even properly use her power. The girl was very surprised that her strength was so special. The daughter looked closely at her father and wondered if she could be useful to Asterians with her strength. The man did not want the girl to think of some benefits, because he loved it just. The Cartus explained Tiel that she was not obliged to be useful to her family, because if she had no power, then she was still his daughter and a full member of the Asterian family. The girl wept. From an early age, her grandfather constantly interpreted that children should contribute to their family. The man hugged his daughter and asked her not to worry about it. The Cartus explained the girl that she should do what she wanted. The man told the child about her power not because he wanted something from her. My father asked her daughter to remember that she only needed to eat and play. A happy smile appeared on Tiel's face. The child did not regret that she had fled from her previous family because her new life shone with bright colors. Meanwhile, Sender Netian was raging. It has been a week and none of his subordinates could find a child. The man understood that the Davnig would not endure such a cold. Sender suggested that the girl died if she wandered for a long time in the snow. On the other hand, the man thought that for some reason the child remained alive and was noticed by the Asterians. Sender understood that the child was tired of Tikoni and then took and disappeared as once her mother. The man thought that it would be even better if the baby dies. Sender ordered the knights that if they find the body of a dead child, then to bring it. A cruel man also ordered that if they find a girl alive, then they would be killed and brought her body. Meanwhile, little Tiel rejoiced in her new life. On that day, she first came into her room, and she turned out to be beautiful and shiny and looked much bigger and better than Ruan's room. The girl turned to the butterfly and told him that the room was too good for her, and there was no need to make the room so beautiful for her. Podden smiled and explained that there was nothing in the estate that would be too good for such a little beauty. The man assured the child that she was the hostess of the estate. The butterfish also asked the girl not to be ashamed and be sure to ask everything she desires. Podden politely reached out and said that the cartoon, along with his family head, prepared many gifts for the child. Tiel was very happy because, according to the Bogretsky, his grandfather paid special attention to her room. Suddenly, the child heard the same horrible voice in his head. The girl hurried to ask a butterfly whether the head of the family did not feel hostile to her. The man said it was impossible, because the harpist took care of his grandson. Podden suggested that Tiel was afraid of more mature adults, because she had to endure many difficult moments. At that time, the harpist was not in the estate, but the man promised that as soon as the grandfather finished with business, he would come. Tiel sincerely hoped that all is well, but the baby still became crazy because she heard horrible words from her grandfather earlier. A few days later, the harpist personally visited his granddaughter. Ferdie conveyed information about the child's fears. My grandfather politely laughed and explained that he called his granddaughter to clarify all the misunderstandings. The girl became lazy and she began to get worse. The harpist realized that Tiel had heard his words about the murder of Chender. The frightened child wanted to hide behind the closet, but the man hurried to reassure her, saying that it was a misunderstanding. The grandfather stood in front of his granddaughter on one knee and tried to reassure her. The man said that he spoke about the girl's grandfather along the mother. The harpist could not hold himself in his hands when he thought he had harmed Tiel. Orpheus was sorry that he was scared of his grandson, so he apologized. The man believed that it was all the whine of his son because he did not allow him to see the girl because she was shy, and that led to misunderstanding. The girl sincerely thanked her grandfather for giving her such a beautiful room, which she could not even dream of. The man was even more exposed to his emotions. He prepared many gifts for his beloved granddaughter. The Orpheus even ordered such gifts that were specifically made for Tiel. Grandpa stretched one of the gifts to the girl. When the baby opened the box, she saw a black leopard plush there. The toy turned out to be soft and fluffy, and Leopard's eyes were the same color as Tiel. The baby happily hugged the toy. Orpheus was nice to watch everything. The man said that as a child, older girls also loved plush black leopards. Tiel lipped her eyes because she didn't know that she had brothers. The man was surprised that the maid did not tell the girl about Ferdie and Ludian. The woman wanted to give the girl the opportunity to fit in the estate, and even then to introduce her to her relatives. The harpist said that the boys, when they heard that their younger sister was found, hurried to return from the academy. Tiel began to be afraid of meeting with his brothers. The girl killed herself in her head that her mother died through her. Since Dad and Grandpa were adults, they understood everything. The child decided that the brothers would fly on her. Tiel thought that the brothers were very sad for their mother. The harpist was deeply impressed with such reflections of the child. He did not want the girl to blame herself. The man decided that the baby had been tired and suggested sending gifts to her room. Grandpa also asked his grandson to go and rest. Rhea hurried to hold a girl. The harpist suggested sending the letter to the non-leaf. He explained that if they do not follow the rules, then the Nestians can try to pick up the baby. The picture understood that the child's self-esteem was extremely low because the 7-year-old child could not think about being useful for the family. The man could not imagine how much the Chandor pressed on the girl and tormented her. The Cardus was very sorry that the daughter was not found before. The harpist explained his son that Tiel was not only his daughter, but also Helen. The man was convinced that they could not be held accountable for the child's concealment, that Arpheus intended to pay other ways to pay the non-detachables. The man decided to block the brazen trading path. Sender raged because the Asterian wanted to block the trade route. This meant that all the export routes of the territory would be blocked. Nestian, located in distant terrain, had a connection with other territories only through Asterian. Sender was well aware that if the land path was blocked, they would not have a different choice than how to export goods with a longer sea route. Since the Asterian family was a leader, she had to properly supply leopards to the leopard clan. Asterian once sent a lot of supplies and the Chandor sent them to support the family finances. Now Sender thought that the Asterian wanted him to give the supplies and returned what he had assigned. The man thought that the harpist understood everything. Sender was convinced that the reason was that. But he was deeply mistaken. Sender received a letter that contained information that Nesan was unusable for raising a child. It also contained information that Tiel would be brought up in Asterian from that day. Sender could not understand how Tiel met with the Asterian. The distance between the clans was huge, and it was necessary to spend 3 days on the road. The man came to mind that the girl went there in the imperial carriage. Sender was very afraid that the gossip would reach the emperor. The man looked at the Noiretsky and ordered him to immediately release the Zir and order the servants and those who could not catch the girl on the day of escape. The granddaughter ran out of the room and asked her grandfather not to release her nanny, Zaire. Chandor did not know that the girl had listened to him. He looked at Rowan and said it was an adult business and they would talk later. But the stubborn girl did not want to release her nanny despite anything. Sender was angry and strictly repeated his grandchildren that they would talk later. Rowan was embarrassed because the grandfather was called for her for the first time in her life. The child exclaimed that she hated her grandfather and fled. Rowan always allowed and treated her perfectly, but not this time. Meanwhile, Tiel has caused light. It was strange to her that the circle did not get larger, but it was much larger in the basement. The girl remembered how Rowan made ice of any size. The child could not understand why she had not yet learned in the skills. Suddenly, Tiel remembered Dad's words that he should not rush. The man then told that her daughter was special, and she had hoped that she would succeed. Arye entered the room and called Tiel to the table. The girl rejoiced because that day they had to eat together for the first time. The baby was happy to meet the brothers, but at the same time she was scared. The Cartus invited his daughter to the table. The girl carefully and slowly sat down at the table and lowered her eyes. Ferdie greeted his younger sister and introduced himself. The girl, in turn, also introduced herself and said that she was 7 years old. Ludian considered Tiel too tiny, not fully believing that she was really his sister. The boy was not as friendly as his brother Ferdie. Ludian considered strange the fact that his sister had a leopard wool and the eyes of a black leopard. Usually, even when mixing races, only one parent was imitated. Ludian noticed that his sister's eyes were gold but white hair. He considered the girl and truly amazing. Tiel considered herself a hybrid with horrible eyes. The father asked Ludian not to bite the little one. He explained that Tiel was modest and asked not to put her for a while. The boys were silent. Ferdie asked his brother not to be so frivolous, but hinted to him that it was time to eat because the food fell off. Ferdie hollowly greeted his sister and introduced himself and his brother, and he told that they were twins with him. Ferdie smiled sincerely and said that a happy mother of such a sweet sister. The boy wanted to get closer to Tiel as soon as possible because he always liked his friends who took with him at the festival of younger brothers and sisters. The girl was glad to hear such warm words from her brother. The Cartist said that he had informed the academy, and the boys will live in the estate for a while. He asked his sons not to hurry and get to know each other well. After the meal, Ludian asked his brother whether he did not sometimes say that he did not want to have a younger sister because she would only annoy. Ferdie looked intently at his brother and told what he was in mind. The brothers began to chuckle. Ferdie looked at his brother and said that in any case, the girl was their younger sister found, and asked Ludian to be better for her. Ludian asked his brother not to talk to him in such a tone. The boy confessed that he would have been so good to his sister and asked him not to indicate what to do. Tiel was accepted in the family before the results of the father's test. She was a long-lost daughter. Everything looked as if someone was specially prepared. The girl had the perfect ratio of bars and black leopard. She was a small and gentle nature that caused sympathy. Ferdie was strange why no one suspected anything. Grandpa and father were very happy and did not even know what to do. Ludian behaved as if it were all fun. Ferdie was also surprised that the baby had the power of light. The curse of the golden god Orfeo was conveyed by heredity in all leopards. It was madness. When using force, a person lost his mind. Ferdie was born with more serious madness than others. The boy thought that his sister would be able to release him from the curse with his legendary power of light. Ferdie thought everything and decided that it was a fool, and everyone was deceived, because with such a tiny and protected appearance, Tiel fooled everyone. But the boy was sure that everyone was believed except for him. After a while, Tiel rested in the garden. The girl was sitting at the tea table that her grandfather ordered for her. Rie wondered the baby, or felt comfortable. She asked not to be ashamed, but to say everything as was. The baby lowered her eyes and asked the maid why the brothers were doing it. The girl saw them watching her, for the bushes. From this, Tiel felt completely uncomfortable. The brothers realized that they were caught hot. They began to blame each other. Before that, Tiel saw the boys hiding in the hallway near the room, and later in the window she saw their faces. The girl did not understand what her fault is. Ria hurried to reassure the little lady and said that the boys were just fascinated by their younger sister, but the father forbade the brothers to attach her. The girl said that when Ferdie looked into her eyes, she seemed to keep her distance and tried to be very careful. In their first meeting, the boy was good, but then something happened. Tiel knew the view too well. The maids began to whisper and informed the girl that the guest had arrived. It was Crown Prince Jandros. The child could not believe it, because the boy came specifically to visit her. Ria reported that a young lady could refuse if he did not want to meet, but the girl really wanted to meet the boy. Previously, she did not have the opportunity to thank him because he helped her. The brothers were shocked because Crown Prince Jandros himself visited them. Ludian could not understand why Ria allowed the boy to see her sister and they did not. Ferdie believed that the maid had incorrectly set priorities. According to Ferdie, Tiel was still quite small for meeting guests from the royal palace. The boy also added that no matter how benefactor the crown of the prince was, he was worth refusing. Ferdie told his sister that the family should be more important than guests, and Jandros called a scoundrel. Crown Prince was dissatisfied with the children, and was surprised that he was dared to call him a scoundrel. Ferdie odoropes. He could not think that his majesty had come without warning. The boy immediately asked what brought Jandros to the Asterian garden. Crown Prince, crossing his hands, reported that he had not returned with the news. Ludian hurried to say that his sister was very shy, and they have not yet had time to talk to her normally. Ferdie, having supported his brother, thanked Jandros for bringing his younger sister. The boy also added that the Crown Prince visit was too hurried, because Tiel needed time to get used to the estate. Jandros was a little angry because it was he who returned the precious younger daughter of the Asterian family, which everyone was considered dead. The boy did not understand why he was so unfriendly. Ferdie explained that the Asterians do not treat their philanthropists, but the protection of his younger sister is his priority. Although the boy was not yet sure that Tiel was really his sister, Ferdie considered Tiel too tiny and he could not leave it alone with someone. The girl really wanted to talk to the Crown Prince and express her gratitude. She looked at her brother with her little eyes and asked to talk a little bit with Jandros. The brothers were not very pleased with the request of the sister, but they had to listen to her. The boy still allowed the sister to talk to Coron Prince, but believed that it was still dangerous, because Jandros was a predator twice as big as a girl. Jandros laughed and was surprised by the boy's thought. He just came to give the girl a gift. Coron Prince also warned that if he is referred to as an unknown guest, there may be problems. The child grabbed Ferdie's hand and was not mind that he went with her. Ludian was upset because he also wanted to leave. The child laughed and offered to go together. Ferdie took his sister by his hand, and they went behind the Coron Prince. Ludian noticed that his brother loved his sister because he was very gentle and trembling. After a few minutes, Ferdie, Jandros, and Tiel sat in a room at a large table. Coron Prince noticed that during his absence of the complexion of the girl had improved significantly. The boy also noted that the baby gained a little weight and looked healthy. The girl smiled and said that in Asterian she had taken care of her very well. Jandros was glad to hear that Tiel had everything. Coron Prince was very worried that he could not say goodbye to the child as it was. The boy had a gift for the girl. Jandros clicked his finger, and the maid brought many beautiful lush dresses. Tiel was amazed because she had never seen such exquisite dresses. There were so many of them that their eyes ran. The child sincerely thanked for the gifts. Ferdie also thanked the gifts, but noted that the girl had already sewed dresses in Asterian. Coron Prince mentioned that at their first meeting, the girl was a piece of old fabric, which was difficult to call clothes. Jandros said that when he remembered it, it seemed to him that even so many dresses would be not enough. A tense atmosphere planned in the air. It seemed to the girl that everything could end with a fight if she did not take any measure. The girl approached the dresses one of the simplest. She thanked Coron Prince, but wanted to accept only one thing. Jandros laughed and could not believe that the child wanted to take only one dress as a gift. Coron Prince insisted that Tiel would accept all the gifts. He agreed that the girls could buy her as many dresses as she wished, but he regretted that he was able to give only one dress at their meeting. The dress gifted by Jandros was the first gift of the girl from her birth. Tiel looked at the boy and told him that he had already given her a precious gift, which she would protect her entire life. Ferdie rolled his eyes and believed that his sister was better used to such, because such dresses would become more and more. The boy knew well that as soon as the girl was recognized as the younger daughter of Asterians, people who wished to get a good relationship with their family would begin to send various gifts. Ferdie said that his sister did not worth considering herself unworthy of this attitude, but Coron Prince thought the guy was just mocking him. It was a gift not from the face of the royal family, but purely from him. There were some misunderstandings between the boys, and they have long spoken in a little overpriced. Tiel asked the boys not to quarrel. Jandros pulled the girl for a dress and pressed against him. Coron Prince was dissatisfied that he was worth leaving the girl in himself. Jandros also added that for a moment I forgot that the boys could be bad on the child. Ferdie decided that Coron Prince directly confessed that he was going to steal the daughter of the Asterian. Jandros smiled and reproached that the result of the test for paternity was still not. Tiel was sure that she was Asterian's family. Suddenly, the child has given the idea that a paternity test may show that she is not a daughter of a cartoon. Tiel has obtained. Jandros asked the girl not to worry and assured that in the event of some problems would contact her. Coron Prince considered the baby very little and cute, and he very much wanted to take her into the royal family. Ferdie was stunned by the boy's words. He confidently laid his hand on his sister's shoulder and said that he would not be. The brother tried to convince the sister that the snow leopard and the golden eyes were not in a rather common phenomenon. The boy looked at the girl and explained that if someone wanted to pick her up, then she should firmly refuse. Tiel did not say that Jandros was their guest, but the brother said that it doesn't matter, and the girl should refuse everyone but family members. The boy returned his sister to Coron Prince and asked to repeat everything. Tiel's attempts were in vain. She could not pronounce a single word clearly. Coron Prince wanted to leave as soon as possible and asked to stop treating him as an uninvited guest. The boy decided that Ferdie had forgotten his status. Jandros began to go to the exit, but Tiel stopped him. She looked at him with her bottomless eyes and asked if he would come. The girl was sad and she wanted to see Coprin. The boy politely kissed the little lady's hand and promised that he would soon visit her, but when she would not have her brothers. Jandros asked him to wait for him, because the next time he promised to bring even better gifts. When the brother and his sister returned to Ludian, the boy seemed very confused. He even thought that Coron Prince conceived something bad, because they did not return for a long time. Ferdie said it was bad because he asked his sister to refuse Jandros, but she could not do it at all. It was a matter of honor of the Asterian. The girl was the younger daughter of the Asterian, and the brother, of course, worried. Ferdie, together with his brother, intended to make sure that Coran Prince was no longer met with Tiel. The girl was upset, considering it the wrong decision. It has been a long time, and the results of the test for paternity were not yet. There was an urgent request, and the results were to come no later than a week. The Cartus considered it strange. Only the donations of the Temple Asterians exceeded the Empire's budget in several years. Ludian was wondering if there was a reason that the process was suspended. The boy even thought that the Nestians could interfere with the affairs of the temple. It was thought that the Nestians did not want Tiel to be with the Asterians and wanted to return it. The Arpheus wanted to immediately find out what was the matter and tell the world as soon as possible about his younger grandson. Ludian was glad and was convinced that as soon as the ad was made, the sister would be struck by a mountain of gifts. Ferdie added that the girl will be able to visit the banquets, or for example, invite friends for tea. The girl did not fully understand what the brothers were talking about. Her past life was too gray and monochrome, and of course there were no entertainment. The father noted that the daughter was not yet ready to communicate with strangers. The father wondered if the daughter wanted to postpone a public announcement. He assured that the girl was not obliged to see strangers if she did not want it. The father considered the baby too young and gave her the choice to do only what she wanted. The man asked Tiel to refuse that she would not like it. Finally, Ludian was allowed to approach his younger sister. The boy was very happy. He even offered to ride a girl on his back. The young man explained that he needed to climb on his shoulders and they will walk in this form on the estate. Ferdie considered himself older, so he asked his brother to stop carrying the beacon. The young man took the book and wanted to read the sister's fairy tale. Tiel was very fond of fairy tales. The boy in his hands kept the story of eating food in a mysterious city. The girl once eavesdropped fairy tales while near the ruin room. Tiel felt truly happy because she read Mella's fairy tales for her every day. Ferdie was glad that the sister was very fond of fairy tales. Ludian looked dissatisfied with his brother because the boy was still quite careful, pretending to be friendly. Ferdie unfolded the book to read it, but Ludian seemed fun to see everything alive. With the help of his magic, the boy tried to revive the pictures from the fairy tale. Ferdie considered his brother a muzzle because he created miracles just in the room. Ferdie even thought that his sister could be a lot scared. To the great surprise of his brother, Tiel was very passionate. She also wanted to use her abilities, as did her older brother. Ludian looked at her sister and suggested that she try to use her abilities. Ferdie added that the sister should be able to awaken his strength without training. The girl lowered her eyes and got bored. She was uncertain that she would work out. According to Ferdie, the ability to manage light was a legendary force. The boy was even surprised that his sister, having such force, could not use it for some reason. Ferdie doubted that Tiel really had the power of light. Ludian decided that even if you rely on some methods, the force should come on its own. The girl wept. Saline tears rolled on her face. Ferdie approached her sister and asked if she really wanted to use her abilities. Tiel wiped her wet eyes and replied that she would very much like that. Ferdie suggested that the child go to the training ground. There he wanted to try to teach at least something sister. The boys considered it a great chance to check the power of light Tiel. It was dark outside. Ludian was worried that they would walk in the yard in such a darkness. Ferdie asked his brother not to worry because he had already warned RIA. Ferdie asked the girl to imagine strength in her head. The boy added that the sister needs to imagine how she uses her strength. The young man wanted to show Tiel how it works using his strength. Ludian was afraid, because the fire that was near his brother was too big. Ferdie's fire literally began to demolish children. Ludian considered his brother completely abnormal. The young man was worried because he noticed that something was clearly wrong with his brother. Ludian desperately asked his brother to stop because he understood that Tiel could suffer. The young man asked his sister to stand and not move. The boy was very afraid that the girl would suffer. Ferdie's madness was more difficult than others, but he had never lost control so much. The young man could not understand why everything was so bad. Ludian asked his brother to take his hands. But it only got worse. The exhausted Ludian fell and was wounded. In the meantime, Tiel blamed herself. The girl believed that it all happened because of her words that she wanted to learn how to use her abilities. The frightened Tiel did not know what to do. She wanted to turn back time when she only reborn. The girl so much wanted to help her brother that a bright circle appeared next to her. The child heard an unfamiliar voice that prompted her jump. The voice also claimed that she could only save her brother. The frightened girl did not know who spoke to her. Ludian lost the gift of language when he saw Tiel began to run inside the fire. His heart froze, and he realized that it was an end. Meanwhile, Ferdie asked the baby not to approach, but the girl shouted that she would not hurt. Tiel was a good child. She knew that though her brother was afraid of her, she was still well. She felt he was a good person and would not be able to harm her. Ferdie kept his breath. The girl rushed straight to him. The boy could not stop his fire, and it was embarrassed. After a few seconds, his sister was in his arms. The girl hugged her brother firmly and firmly decided that she would work out, as in the basement. Tiel convinced herself that the brother would save her light. Suddenly, the fire merged with a golden glow, in which the fish were circling. Ludian could not understand what was happening. After a while, the fire was extinguished and the girl fell down. Ferdie, holding the baby in his arms, asked her to be reconciled. The boy took his sister in his arms and took to the room. After that, a father, who demanded explanations, came. Ludian said that his brother unexpectedly lost control, and it was not from excessive use of abilities, but just so happened. Ferdie said his brother tried to stop and hurt him, and Tiel was able to save him. Ferdie realized that he had lost control because he imagined release from madness. It was a powerful flame that he could use if it was not for a curse. And with the advent of the sister, the desire became greater. The boy was aware that he almost hurt his sister because of his stupidity, but the child ran to him without even thinking. The young man considered it unimportant whether the girl was his sister or not. Ferdie hated himself for expecting the power of light. He was afraid to believe in such a strange legend, and then disappointed. That is why the young man treated his sister very carefully. The girl was fully trusted by her brother, who found only a drop of kindness. Ludian believed that it was all his guilt and his brother was innocent. As it turned out, Ferdie used not even half of his usual power. The father was understanding with the situation. He wanted to discuss all the details later, because at that time the most important was Tiel's health. The man was thinking about building a ceiling at the training ground. The light would not be so bright that it could not only cover this territory, but all the land. The Cardis was certain that the royal family and the temple could not help but notice such a large-scale phenomenon. The legend seems to be true. Tiel carried a force that she could not stand. The Cardis asked Ferdie in the morning to contact the temple first and make a request for paternity test results, until no one learned anything to protect her daughter as soon as possible. It was the purpose of a man. The morning has come. Ria wondered the girl whether she was not worried about her. The child turned out to be asleep and immediately asked what happened to Ferdie, remembering that he was in danger. Ria told the child that Ferdie was near her until the morning. The girl went out the door and saw her brothers. The boys were embarrassed and worried about the sister's health. Ludian said that he was very worried about the girl's health. He noted that Tiel was fearless, being so small. The young man was very worried that the child would be seriously injured. Tiel hugged Ferdie. The children were glad that everything was safe. The girl came to Lord Cardis. He asked her to go with him in one place. My father told her daughter that Ferdie was in great danger, and if the girl was a regular baby, she would have died. The Cardis considered the girl's act meaningless, but he smiled at her and thanked Ferdie's salvation. The man in no way read his daughter. He just worried about her because he was her father. The Cardis contemplated the child and asked her to take care of herself more. The Cardis stroked the baby on the head and then took her hand and they went to the door. On the way, they met a grandfather who was very pleased that his grandson felt great. The Arpheus said he had already come to the baby, but she was asleep. The girl said that her dad and brothers took care of her and worried about her. The harpist was happy. The man was also convinced that the son explained the whole child. Grandpa with his granddaughter approached the bookcase. The girl did not get to the books, and her grandfather lifted her in her arms. Then he asked the child to press the red book. The girl touched the book with her finger. They opened a secret room. Only the heads of the Asterian family knew about this room. Only the person in which the blood of the Asterians flowed could open that door. The happy harpist reported that there was no need for a paternity test. The man invited his grandson inside. This place has long been passed on by Asterians from generation to generation. The room was designed to awaken the power of light. Grandpa asked his granddaughter to climb inside. Getting into the specified place, a golden light shone before the girl. The baby was surprised because the light turned out to be on its own. Although the light was bright, it did not blind. The Cartus noted that the light was indeed mysterious. Something began to show up on the wall. These were ancient runes. The inscription heralded that when the eternal darkness disappears and the light would finally take its place, the Asterians and the Nestians would return their true power. Light will suppress the darkness with one of its existence. The harpist was amazed because it meant that light was able to reassure madness in one existence. The girl did not understand what the language was talking about. My father asked her if she saw Fendie's condition. This curse was transmitted in the births of Asterian and Nesan. They lost control if they used excessively. Ferdie managed to survive thanks to his youth. The madness of adults destroyed everything around until the carrier was destroyed. The Cartus lowered his eyes and said that no one could stop anyone. Then he lifted his eyes to the baby and said to anyone but her. The girl was embarrassed. She had no idea that she had such a powerful power. The child felt the necessary and already knew what was a real Asterian. Grandpa allowed the girl to come to the room always when she wanted it. Tiel was embarrassed because only the heads of the family could be there. The Arpheus laughed and explained that in general the room was created from the very beginning for the one who awakens the power of light. The child was clear and smiled. The man looked at the son, who looked completely cheerful. The Arpheus squeezed his cartoon shoulder and promised him that they would definitely protect this place. Men were ready to fight for the last, and did not want the thieves to touch the baby at least. It turned out that letters from the palace and the temple arrived. The letters wrote quickly, although in fact there were no news from them for several weeks. The harpist was surprised. It was said that the light was seen even in the territory of the Nedians. These were fish in the sky that glowed. It was a sign of the goddess of light Tuset, to which their state was officially worshipped. The harpist was convinced that everyone would be delighted, especially the temple. The man read his son that the test results were ready and they were waiting for a picture with Tiel. The man was worried. There would be enough letter with results. The Cartus could not understand why the temple decided to call them in person. The man thought that everyone realized that the light emitted Tiel. The harpist reported that he had contacted some. The father promised his son that when he was in the temple he would be helped. Men intended to prepare. Subsequently, everyone sat at the table and the girl tasted a sweet dessert. Ferdie laughed and even offered a sister of the supplement, but the maid was harsh and said that you could only one piece, so as not to interrupt the appetite. Ludian politely gave his piece of goodies to the baby. The boy told that he did not eat, but left his sister. Ferdie grabbed his head, because Rhea did not mean it at all. Tiel cut off a piece of dessert and extended his brother. Ludian was very frustrated because her sister decided to share with him. Ferdie also wanted his sister. The child turned and extended a piece to another brother.